This is loud, no? Instead of me just going through my slides, which I prepared in case of we don't have any questions. So, when I saw that Witcher 3 is coming out, one of the first things that they showed was this concept art armor, as you can see here. And hello? Okay. And I was totally in love with the design of the armor because you can see all this fur and the heavy gambeson down there. And I fell in love with this. It was like, I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago when they released this. And I haven't been a cosplayer for long when it came out, so I had no idea how to do this. And it was totally intimidating, so I said, this project isn't for me, so I won't do it. 2 years later, like 2 years ago now from now, I made my 10th cosplay already. I acquired skills over the times. I learned how to work with different material. And then I was looking back and I said, I think I can finally do it. So I started working on this project. And yeah, this is how I started. Most important thing was getting the references right. And the problem was, since it was a concept art, there was only this picture. This armor never made it in the game, like in this design. Everyone who played the game knows that the bear armor, which is in the game, looks a little different. It's just more metal, more chainmail, more everything, which is heavier, but no more fur. So I still chose this version. The good thing is if you have a reference like this, where you can see the basic armor, the upgraded armor, the superior stuff, until up to the mastercrafted armor, you really know where you can start with the patterning down below. And then just from time to time upgrade it with more upper layers. This is the armor I was talking about. This is the one which made it in the game. So there are a lot of things similar to the armor from the concept art, which made it easier to go into the game, take some screenshots, to watch the 360-degree stuff. And I also used the figure, which was really helpful for the bag, which I don't have here. It's somewhere over there. Because just from the concept art, for example, it's just a big black dot where you don't see anything, so you have to look closely into the details. Well, it was at least 1 month of preparation, to find every details, the patterns, so that if you are in the workflow of creating the armor, that there is no point where you're stuck because you don't know how to proceed or how to make a thing. There is, if you played The Witcher, there's of course a lot of different swords. The swords I chose were for the bear armor, since in the concept art you don't really see which swords he's using. I was lucky to find a high-resolution Skyrim mod somewhere, which was more detailed than any Witcher screenshots I found. Which helped a lot with the 3D modeling. And yeah, so starting with having all the references, I wanted to start with the sewing part for the gambeson, which I did, and for the leather cuirass, so I could build stuff up from basic to mastercrafted. So here. So you can see the easiest part was to just take a sewing puppet and build the thing with paper and cut it open, and then you have your sewing pattern. It was like basic sewing, like for the different stuff. You can always find some gloves pattern online, which you just modify, or make your own patterns for stuff like like the bags which he has. Yeah. Chainmail. I was just judging Eurocosplay, and I think every second contestant had chainmail made on their own. I think it's a Hungarian thing. People really like to do chainmail here, but just as a quick reference, this is how you easily do chainmail. I think most of you already know. You just take a pen or some stick and you do a spool of aluminum coil around it, then you cut it off and you have those rings. And the thing which I like to do is always make sets of 5, and after those I will fuse them together. And there is one technique for getting them darker, which is a chemical compound which is used for guns, it's called gun blue, where you scrub your guns and they turn black. I don't know why it is even a thing, but it works on everything which is metal. It turns this dark, which is always a problem when you see a lot of Witcher cosplayers or cosplayers with great armor and they have those chain mails, and it's always shiny. Even if everything else is weathered really nicely, you can't really weather chainmail with color, acrylic or alcoholic based. It really needs like a chemical compound or real rust to give it a weathered, used look. Yeah, sewing was a big part of it, of course. Yeah, gambeson is a padded wool fabric, which was sewed with a black thin thread, so you have this structure, and afterwards you go over it again with a hand stitched thread, so it looks nicer, but it's without the thin thread, the black one, it won't look that good. It's also recommended, if you want this white thread to look like to really look white, you should weather it before. It was a problem for me because I sewed everything together, and afterwards when I was weathering, it was a challenge to not weather the white thread, so it still got a little darker. And yeah, I was really lucky to have a friend and a mother who had really old sewing machines, which were mechanical. So if you try to, like here we have some places with 4 layers of real leather. If you have a new sewing machine like those digital ones, they won't penetrate those 4 layers. But the old sewing machine from my friend, we call it the Wehrmachtsmaschine. It's like an old German 45 machine which penetrates like 6 layers of those leather things. It was really helpful on this project. And the rest is mainly sewn by hand, especially if you're doing accurate cosplay or mainly LARP or any reenactment thing, you have to be careful for the outer seams. There are several different techniques how you can stitch those edges, because they are the ones who get worn off the most of the time. So you have to look out to have them safe, that they don't open, or if they get damaged, that the thread don't how do you say, it gets loose everywhere. So if this would rip, this would be the maximum of the rip which would happen, so it does not spread over the whole. So there's different techniques for that. Also for all the edges where leather is used, you should protect it with some kind of stitching technique. Okay. Leatherworking, this is the most fun for me. Show me. Okay. So as you can see, I was just talking about those stitches. This is really a fun thing to do because everything you do with real leather, you usually punch the holes beforehand. So depending on what you do, you usually, especially, oh, I don't have the weapon belt with me now, but if two pieces have to be sewn together, you really have to count the holes. So if there's 50 holes here, 50 holes here, you know how to put it together and sew all the holes with each other, which I really like. I prefer it to normal sewing because if I'm with the sewing machine or something goes wrong and I have to cut it open again and try it again, and then, you know, those pieces when there's left over somewhere and you know, why? But if you work with holes which are pre-stitched already, it's just playing with Lego and something you know where things go, so you can't be anything wrong. Especially if you punch the holes wrongly or you sew it with sewing machine, you can't open it and try it again because if once you penetrate real leather, it looks like shit. There's holes in it. So it's a lot of preparation. And when all the holes are punched and you put things together, it's like just sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix for hours and just sewing everything together by hand, which is really relaxing after work. Yeah, for this, for example, it would be very thick leather, but I did not want to use thick leather like this. It would be heavy and everything, so I had leftover leather, which was very thin, so I built this thing out of EVA foam and just covered it with the leather, which I did for several parts, like this part too. Leather is expensive, so if you want to start working with leather, don't try to find like it's hard. If you know what kind of leather you need, you will probably pay a lot for this. So one of my things that I like to do is whenever I go fabric shopping or see leather somewhere, which leftover leathers, you often find this at second-hand shops when there is a couch which was given away or ripped apart, and you can buy those beautiful pre-weathered leather pieces where a lot of butts have been sitting on there probably, but it's very cheap and you can use it for great cosplays. And that's why I was hoarding a lot of pieces, and I had those thin leather pieces already, so I used them for this cosplay. Riveting is also very fun if you live in an apartment in Vienna and have really angry neighbors. So there's like there's 2-hour period in the afternoon, evening, where you can really hammer in the rivets without anyone knocking on your door. Yeah. It's a really fun thing to do, riveting. I already mentioned foam. Foam is always an easy way to work if you want to make something quick and keep it in a shape that it's supposed to look. If you would make those shoulder pads out of real leather, it would be hard to get this outer edge, and to make it stay in that position, you would have to buy expensive leather dye, make it wet and keep it in shape for 24 hours until it holds the shape. Then you have to put the leather dye on it to seal it with everything, and you have to buy thick leather, which would cost about 50 euros. So this was a very cheap alternative for me. It took me a few hours, since it's just EVA foam covered with a little bit of warbler to keep it even a harder shape, and then cover it with this really thin, stretchable leather that I found, glued it on there, put some rivets on the side, and it was finished. And it looks like the real deal. And the good thing is I've been transporting this cosplay so often that you can always see a lot of weathering here, but it's just transport, which is actually pretty nice. That's why I'm keeping it there and not fixing it. Transporting is a real bad thing if you go to abroad. I was talking earlier with Ildiko. If you have cosplays and you travel, don't try to travel with like big cosplays like this. Everything breaks, even my swords and everything. It's hard to travel abroad with those cosplays. That's why I prefer going by car, actually. That's why I'm here with car too. But sometimes you just have to book the flight for London, for example. Okay, any more slides? Yeah, this is also EVA foam. I made those shin guards. The first shin guards I made them out of EVA foam. I covered them with, I don't know if you know, some resin component because I needed it to be really shiny, and so I could paint it like it's real shining metal. But the only thing that I had when I planned my performance for The Witcher, and if you know The Witcher, there's usually those big meditation scene where he goes down on his knees, and when you first try this with those, you just hear the ripping noise and you'll see like, fuck, yeah. It was a bad idea making them out of EVA foam. So I had some friends who were in the lab community, and they always have those great, awesome shin guards, and they were like, where do you get them? Yeah, we buy them in lab shops. And they're like, bad, can't buy if you want to join the competition, of course. So they referred me to a smith they have in Austria. It's the last armor smith we have, and he's a real fun guy, because you can't just go there and make armor with him or something like that. You have to spend one day with him, and then he decides if you are worthy to enter his smithy. So, yeah, that's what I did. But I think I have some pictures later, and I will tell you about this really awesome manly experience in a steamy smithy. Yeah, that's. I don't have pictures, I just made some Instagram stories back then, which I dug out for here. But you can see, this is how you start. You just take a piece of metal. This was patterned with baking paper, which you just basically hold against your feet. You paint it on, and then you see how it will look, because it's very flexible paper. And then you cut this piece out of metal, and there are several things that you want to shape, of course. For the references, he has this lining in the middle and the spike to the front, which is, since he was a professional smith, he told me that it's a design for games or fantasy, because it's not practical, it does not work. Especially if you have the spike like he has in the reference pictures, it goes to the front over the what's it called? Foot thing here, yeah? And if you want to move forward, the spike goes into your foot, or you can't really move well. So we altered the design a little bit so that there's still a spike. He was really helpful with it. And basically it's, you heat it, you hit it, and you repeat this like 1,000 times. So you can, if you just want to imagine this experience, you have to imagine a small, dark smithy with a hot anvil, the really, really big, bald guy who takes off his shirt, throws it away because it's so steaming hot, takes this leather, I don't know, leather vest, swings it around, everything is sweating, and he starts beating everything, and he tells me, here, take this hammer, you beat it as hard as you can. It was the most masculine experience that I ever had. Yeah, he also told me some techniques from the armors he made, because he makes armors for rich people who own castles and who want to have knight armors standing somewhere. So he told me some techniques how to deal with the edges, so the edges are safe for the wearer and the edges don't get caught in any clothes. And yeah, it was a fun experience. Yeah, another interesting thing that I did for Eurocosplay, which I don't regularly do at conventions. Like yesterday, I did not use the silicone scars either, because it takes a lot of time. We made the scars for Geralt, because I think most of you already know collodium. It's a material which is a scar fluid. It's really nice material. You put it on, the skin like moves together like glue. It's a chemical compound, and then you have a scar right here. It's really easy to use, but the thing is, if you wear it longer than 2-3 hours and you move your facial structures, it starts to crumble and fall off. So the only alternative, if you're wearing scars for the whole day, is making silicone scars. It's a fun thing to do because you just, measuring looks really funny. And then you make the scars out of clay, basically. After that, we make some little protection lines out of there, as you can see, which will be coming to later again. And then you fill it up with silicone, have a silicone mold, and the good thing is you can cast the silicone with silicone or latex, does not matter, and afterwards you have those vagina-shaped thingies here, which I don't think I have a video, but I have a video on my Instagram feed where you can see you glue this thing basically on your head. And afterwards you use acetone, like I think it's acetone, yeah, and you have I forgot something to mention. There's a two-step process when you cast this. The ridge and the scars are filled with silicone or latex, and the thin layer here is sprayed with a material which is used for making bolt caps. You can buy it in the makeup shops. And this material dissolves when you use acetone on it. So, coming back to the thing I just said, you glue the scar on your head, and then you take a little a cotton ball with acetone, and you start dissolving this area around here until the point where this falls off, and you can really go closer to the silicone. And the good thing is when the bolt cap material dissolves, it really blends with your skin, so you don't see an outline or anything. It's a really cool thing to do, but it takes a shitload of time. That's why I don't do it at conventions. Especially if I go out, like yesterday with Vikings. It was a tough night. Yay, 3D design. This was a thing I did not do before, but I wanted to. I started with it, and I was skeptical at first, of course, but it's not that hard. There is basically 2 ways, or like 3 ways to be a 3D designer. There's those people who are crafty, who take models out of video games, like Skyrim mods. They can be translated into 3D models, then you just scale them and you can print them. It's basically what I did for the bear head we have here, but I modified it a lot later. And there is the very talented people who can use things like ZBrush or Blender, which is you basically have a piece of clay in your 3D program and you model it. I can't do that, so I'm one of those of the third kind which use math to 3D model. Basically, what you can see here are just parts of the sword, which are like cubes or mathematical formulas which tell the sword parts how to look. And you really start by making a block. It's very easy. Then you give the block thin edges, and you may have your sword. Then you give it a hilt, which is just a hilt, and then you start making the pieces afterwards. Up there, this is also a very easy method of creating things is you can draw this in Photoshop or somewhere else, does not matter, as long as you save it as a vector graphic, and vector graphics can easily be translated into 3D models where you just tell them to like rise up for 1 millimeter and then you put it on other textures that were easily modeled. So took me about 1 month to get this right, how to understand it, and yeah, it's a fun thing to do. Okay. The thing I wanted to do with my sword is it looks good, but it has runes on it, so I always wanted it to light up, of course, and it was difficult for me to get LEDs in there and also have it stable, because if you do the casts of this, or as you can see, this is a normal cast of a sword, it gets floppy. You just have a wet noodle in your hand afterwards and you can slap people with it. So you have to use some carbon or some metal sticks in it to give it a good grip, and that it's really hard. But the more of the reinforcement you use, the less space you have, of course. So in here we have LED strips on both of the sides, and around it there goes a grid of steel rods which go back to the hilt, and which is bent in the hilt so the electronics fit in. There is Arduino controller in there, and I will show you. Put the microphone away for a second. Spare head comes off, so the battery can go in here. And that's what I was working on for the longest of the time, because it is I think my 7th or 8th sword until I finally got it right. Had a lot of problems with them, especially when it came down to making them sturdy and floppy. Floppiness was always a little problem, but with those steel rods and everything, I was finally managed to get a sword which is sturdy, is not floppy, which I can also use on stage. Because the stage performance was also very important for me to have the possibility to use the sword. Like, so you can really use it for show. Okay. Yeah, also cast the amulet out of metal, which was just a thing which I wanted to do, because there is only one metal which you can really cast at home, which is tin. And there you have those desoldering pots. You can buy them for 10 euros on eBay. They cost nothing, and they heat up to 400, 500 degrees, and you can put those little tin bars in there and cast it into silicone molds. So I made some of the heads for the Witcher pendant, but the one I used for the cosplay competition I cast out of resin, because I drilled some holes in there and put LEDs in them, because I wanted the eyes of the wolf to shine. I think I have pictures later. A good friend of mine, which I don't have with me right now, is my is my trophy. Can you please press the button? Oh, sorry, thanks. It works. Because when I went to the competition, I always wanted to have some trophy, because I usually, if you know Geralt, Geralt is the monster hunter, the most badass concept art or pictures anywhere you see of him is him holding a griffin head or a fiend head or something like that, or a leshen. So I decided I want to make a fiend head. The funny thing, there's a backstory to this. I always wanted to make him, like years ago, but he has some kind of elk horns, antlers, and elk antlers are really expensive. So when I heard like 200 euros for elk antlers, now I won't do it. It's 3D printing them or designing them or modeling them now. I want the real thing. It looks really cool and I can model from it. But I put the idea aside. But one day I found someone who was selling his collection of deer antlers, and there was this one particular antler which looked like an elk antler, just a little bit tinier. And I was like, hey, wow, great antler, how much do you want for it? I was expecting like maybe 100 euro or something, and he said like, nah, you can have it. It's mutated. No one likes it. Because it was from a normal deer, but the antlers like grown together, so okay, well, I take it. So next day I started putting those antlers on styrodur plates, like also some, I don't know what the material is called, but yes, you can see it, you probably know it. Then I shaped the basic form of it, and the rest I did with clay. This is a two-component clay which you mix together, and you have a working time of around 30 minutes or something. And afterwards it dries really hard like resin. So you can sand it really good. And a thing I did, which a friend of mine told me, is we shaved some fake fur. There were like thin hairs, and we put those thin hairs in the clay, and after sanding, the thin hairs come out and they give you like this little, I don't know, like when I shave on the next 2 days, it feels like the same. And yeah, the thing for the eyes was a very interesting technique that I also found online. You just take half of glass or plexiglass spheres, and you put, this is for nail polish. Just put three or four colors of nail polish with a black in the middle, and with a needle you just pull it outside and it looks really good, like a monster eye. Too bad that I don't have him with me. I don't think I have pictures of him right now. Okay, well, weathering. This is the thing I hate the most on every cosplay. Because if you sew something really nicely, or if you're really satisfied with it, and then you know I have to make it dirty now, or I have to rip it apart, and you go with sandpaper over your beautiful thing that you just created. But it is worth it in the end, because it looks really better afterwards. So I started with making it dirty on the bottom, adding a lot of blood, and furthermore to weathering, you have, as I told you, the black lines where the dirt should collect. It's also a good idea to highlight the parts which will be torn from usage, of course. So I had black lines for the ridges and white spray for the top. It was acrylic based, and I wore this cosplay already 2 times when it was raining, like yesterday. So there is no more weathering on it. Well, at least a little bit, but yeah. Okay. Another thing that I found really hard was to weather real leather, because acrylic doesn't really stick to real leather. So there is a good thing if you have leather parts, even if you have bought leather parts or anything out of leather, and you want it to look used, you use black shoe polish, actually. You just put it on everywhere and scrub it off with a tissue, and it will stick to the ridges and the deeper parts, so it really looks dirtier and weathered. It's a really easy trick to use when you weather parts that are from leather or even fake leather, it does not matter. It's not recommended for fabrics though, because you can scrub it off. Yeah. Embroidery was a fun thing to do, which I never, I did it with hand, it was shitty, and I had my sheets, which I don't have with me right now. It has a very distinctive pattern on the sheets, so I could have sat down for days and make it by hand, but I thought, no, I don't want to. So I had a friend who has an embroidery machine, and she told me how these things work, and it's basically the same like the 3D modeling thing. You just draw the thing you like as a vector graphic in Photoshop or some other tool that you're used to work with, and you tell the program this is how it looks like, and those roses for the sheet basically made themselves in the machine afterwards. I think it would save me like 3 days or something. Yeah, cosplay smart, not cosplay hard. Okay, electronics, I think we already talked about it. Yeah. For my swords, I wanted to change the colors, because in the Witcher games you have the possibility to put in different runes. If you put in the Igni runes, which are the red runes, the sword lights up red, you do more fire damage. If you put in the purple LEDs for the ear, then you get more range on your signs and spells. So I wanted the possibility to change the color. Just wrote a little program, which I had never done before, which also took me 2 days. There's a lot of help on forums for that. It's really easy to work with, especially if you use those LED strips. You can see here, there is a library of thousands of preset ways to configure this. So basically, you just put the Arduino. This is this little controller here. Link it with, sold it together with the LED strip. This code is basically copied from the internet, and it says, if button is pressed, make it red. If button is pressed again, make it purple. It's very easy to program, even if you have never programmed before. Yeah, I told you before, the last head I made for the contest, I cast out of resin, because it was easy to put LEDs in it, and the resin was clear, so you could see through it, the light shines through, and then just paint the rest in a silver gray, so it looks like metal, and the eyes of the wolf still shine. So if you know The Witcher, the eyes always shine when there's danger near and monsters, so it gave me a really nice edge, especially when there's a LED so centric on a dark piece of leather costume. Okay. Yeah, performance. If you want to join a cosplay competition, the problem is, even if you look the most badass, you know, those big armor creations that you've all seen, it's really hard to make performances for it. That's why I tried to make the cosplay as easy movable as possible. Already told you about the shins. I want to kneel down. I made a lot of changes, especially when it comes to fixing everything to your body, so you can really move all the elbows. You have to make the swords move, so it took a little alteration afterwards. And then the performance is really important, and for even if you know your cosplay is really good, some other cosplay will be good too. So performance is basically then the only way to give you the edge over the other competitors. thing with sword fighters is you can't really do much on stage except swing your sword. So as a recommendation for me is tune it to the music or the cues you have. So I used the part of a fighting scene in my performance which had those zings and sword sounds already introduced. So what I did is basically matched my performance to the sounds. So you can see that the sword moves are timed with the sounds. Can you please play the video? I have a video of the performance from my qualifier, not from Eurocosplay. Video, please, yeah. So you can see what I did with a performance. I tried to make it short and impulsive, which is also a hard thing to do. Is there sound?
Damn, you're ugly.
Always add in a little fun element, which is always very relieving for your performances. So that's why I add the cue of "damn you ugly." But yeah, I think you get the point when I said you have to time it with your sword sounds well. So it's just it feels more natural if there's a sword fighter on stage. So yeah, I chose the qualifier video, by the way. So not the one from Eurocosplay. So some people already know that when I entered Eurocosplay, I had a broken knee. So I was wearing a brace over my foot. The bad thing was the brace was shiny blue. So it looked really shitty on the Geralt cosplay. So on the day of the convention at Eurocosplay, we went to some store from an African guy who sold everything. You could buy everything there. And we also found bandages. So we bought a shitload of small bandages. We wrapped the whole brace and put some blood, fake blood on it, so it looked like a wounded witcher with my bandages. So on stage, I was like, I was just playing the whole skit that you just saw, but wounded, and I was so injured and everything. And the judges actually believed me, and afterwards they saw that I have a brace, and they was like, what the fuck? was good. I like that feedback. So, if you have any questions, would be, yeah, awesome. Yeah. The question is, for the shoulder parts, how high can I raise the arm? Basically, I can raise it to everywhere up I want, because that's a design of the medieval design how gambeson works. Because a gambeson, as you can see, is not attached to the sleeve. It's two parts, so your arm goes in there, and there's only a small part where the gambeson is connected to the sleeve so that there's a lot of availability to move. It's also, thanks for asking, it's a research I did because on stage you want to be really freely to move, and this would be a thing if you raise your arms up high, everything goes up, of course, and won't look that good anymore. Any other questions? Okay. The question was tris or yen. It's a really tough question because okay, it's very good because my girlfriend is not here, so I can say tris, but she would kill me if she saw that. Anything else you want to know about crafting techniques?
Hi. How hard is it for you to unsheath your weapon from your back?
It's a very good question, especially in the Witcher community, because if you see Geralt, he unsheaths his sword from the back. This is not possible. It does not work. Only if you have like a sword which is this long. So the Witcher community, they figured out how to do stuff, and a good friend of mine, I don't have the sheets with me right now, but basically if you have a sheath, you cut open the side. So you don't pull the sword up, you twist it outside, and then you go quickly up the top. So it looks like you pulled it from the back, but basically you just pull it out a little bit and then turn it to the top. Anyone else who wants to know something? Okay. Yeah.
Hi, and how about your hair? Your natural hair was longer, or did you use a wig?
Oh, okay. I think the question was about my hair. Yeah, okay. It is a part of a wig, so he has a total different hairline than me, of course, and the first Geralt I did was with my own hair, and it always looks really shitty. If you, not always, but most of the time it looks really shitty if you use your own hair for stuff like that. So the first wig I did was destroying a lace front, so I bought a lace front, was cutting off the sides and trying to fit the hairline to Geralt. Just you glue the front part to your hair. The bad thing is you need a side cut for this to work. There were like some complications with those wigs, which I did not really like. So I had a wig made from for the hairline, just the top. So it was a lace front, typical lace front, but he has a different hairline, and I had that made from a friend. And so this is my newest wig, which you maybe saw yesterday, which is also a part from here to there. Basically, same hair that I have, but only in Witcher color with Witcher shading, and it looks more natural with more hair. Okay, any more questions? Well, thank you then for joining me here, listening to the stuff I talk about. If you have Thank you very much.